Welcome to the On Purpose Investor Podcast with your host Eric and Tiffany Vogel. We've spent several hard years building a rental property portfolio so we can have more time with our family and live our ideal life. Now, finding your path can be difficult, so we're here to guide you along the way with lessons, tips, and tricks to design and implement your dream life. Now, sit back, turn up the volume, smash that follow button, and get ready for this episode of the On Purpose Investor. Hey Pathfinders, and welcome back to the On Purpose Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Eric, with my beautiful, lovely, blushing bride of a co-host,
Tiffany.
I told you I'm not going to go over the top with it, but I am also going to introduce you as I seem fit.
Okay.
As I deem fit.
All right.
And I should always introduce it as you are my beautiful, lovely, amazing co-host.
Yes, well, thank you. I heard from someone that it sounds like when I say my name that they can hear the eye roll. And if you're not watching on video, yes, there is an eye roll in there.
It's not that intense of an eye roll, though.
No.
It's more or less, here he goes again.
You can't hear it. Some of my eye rolls are so loud there, you can hear it.
Oh, gosh. And this is what marriage is. So welcome back to the On Purpose Investor Podcast. We are on show number 31. No deals are out there.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk today about what do you do when there's no deals out there?
Right.
And how do you get creative? Or how do you find deals? Or how do you make deals? Or where should you go if there really are none in your area?
Yeah, it holds a lot of people back because they feel like they're looking in the market and they just, oh my gosh, house prices are so expensive. There's no deals.
Well, I thought I found a killer deal yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I got a notification that a house went on the market in a very nice neighborhood, and it was priced so low. And I immediately called the guy. It was a for sale by owner. Us in the business, we'll call that a FSBO. And I called him. I said, hey, my name's Eric. I'm a real estate investor. I love buying rental properties, especially in your area. And I would like to make you a cash offer right now. He said, oh, great. What would you like to offer me? I said, well, you have the home listed for $159, and I know that that is way below what it could go for, so I'm willing to give you $200,000 cash today. He said, oh no, this house has been mislisted. It should be $559.
Yeah, I guess he fat-fingered the list price. So if you're selling a house by yourself, or if you're an agent listing a house, check the price.
So usually when a house comes on the market like that and it's listed really below value, one of two things is happening. Either it's a fat finger and a typo, or the property needs a lot of work. And it could be a combination of needs a lot of work and the seller is in a situation they need to get out of quickly. So either way, you're there to help that person. And if you see a property listed way below market value, offer a little bit more for what you can afford to do.
Right. Offer a reasonable price.
Yeah. I mean, $200,000 would have probably still been a very low offer. And I kind of made that offer in jest, just because I knew that there was no way he was selling it for that.
Yeah.
Because I looked at some comps in the area and it was pulling between $500,000 and $600,000. And
so funny.
I was like, oh, give it a shot to see how it goes. Still better than the first phone call I ever made to a seller.
Gosh.
And my goodness, that was a rough phone call. And looking for deals back then.
Yeah.
And I went way out of my comfort zone.
You did.
So just a quick little story about that. So we're sitting on a mastermind call with, we were in a mastermind at the time, and we were on a call, and we were talking about what was going on for us. And I said, oh my gosh, I just got a text from this guy, and he's thinking about selling me a house. And they were like, oh, go make the phone call. Go do it and come back. So I was like, okay. I'll go do the phone call. So I hopped off the mastermind call. Tiffany was sitting right there by me. And I looked at her. I said, so what do I say? She's like, you know how to do this. You're going to be fine. Just talk to him about the house. You've gone to certain seminars to learn how to talk to sellers. And I tell you, I said everything backwards. I said everything wrong. I was shaking.
Fumbled over words. Like you weren't even coherent at times. It was really, I wish we'd recorded it just for our own benefit.
It was like watching Pee Wee football and watching all of the kids out there not be able to pick up the ball. It's like it's covered in grease.
Well, or it's like T-ball, and they're sitting there jumping up and down because they got to pee in the middle of the game, kind of thing.
If you don't know what the Savannah Bananas are, they're like a baseball team down in Savannah, Georgia, and it's just a fun baseball game. It's not real baseball, if you will. They just do jokes and don't actually play the game most of the time. It kind of reminded me of that too. It's
like Harlem Globetrotters, kind of.
Yeah, very similar. I'm trying to play baseball, but I don't know how to play it.
Yeah. But I mean, so long story short, we wound up not purchasing that house, not because of your pitch. The guy was really, really a great guy, and
really good guy, and just it didn't work out. He wanted to sell it for a lot more than we could afford, a lot more than we could wrap our head around at the time.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience. So if anything, that whole experience taught me, get out of your comfort zone, just do it, go fail. Because I always say this, it's okay to fail so long as you fail forward. Well, I've never had a conversation that bad since then.
Yeah, and you didn't die. You didn't get hurt.
That's right.
Like, your ego might have been hurt a little bit, but...
Yeah, it was hard to stomach that.
Yeah.
Because we had to jump right back on the mastermind call, and they were all like, yo, how'd it go? How'd it go? And I didn't even talk. Tiffany talked, and she's like, y'all, that was bad. She's like, y'all, that was really bad. And Eric doesn't want to talk about it. And I said... Very accurate. Let me tell you about another part of our business that's going on. And we didn't revisit that.
Right.
Actually, we haven't talked about it a lot since then.
No, I honestly forgot about it.
I'm so glad it happened.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we did that phone call. So no deals are out there. That was a deal that was out there, and I did my best to make it happen. I failed miserably. But because I failed miserably, I was able to learn how to negotiate and talk to sellers moving forward.
And then we bought several houses.
We bought many houses after that. And I was able to negotiate with sellers even better because I knew what it felt like to struggle and to not know the words.
Yeah.
I knew the words. They just wouldn't come out of my mouth.
Out. It's so funny. I think you just got in your own head, but... Yeah.
So there are no deals out there.
Yeah.
Here are the steps that we're going to suggest to you. Like we always try to say is we're not telling you how to do it. These are suggestions. We are laymen. So we're not lawyers. We're not... accountants. We're not anything professional.
We're idiots. Don't trust us.
Yeah, don't trust us. This is advice and suggestions that has worked for us.
Yeah.
And how we would approach this situation and how we have approached this situation in the past and currently, actually.
Yeah.
So, step 1.
Yeah.
Have very clear criteria.
Right. So you don't know if it's a deal unless you know the numbers and what it should be. Mm-hmm. You know, what is a good price to purchase it for? How much is it going to cost to renovate? Are you willing to do big renovations or not? I know we've done some that I don't know that we would ever do something in that scope again with big structural foundation issues. I think our criteria has been limited to, we might do some wall moving and stuff, but if there's foundation damage, I don't think we're touching that going forward. We haven't talked about it, but I'm assuming you're on that same page.
No, I definitely am. It really depends on how much meat is on that bone.
Right.
And for y'all that don't know that phrase, when we say there's meat on the bone, it means you were able to buy the home at such a discount that there's a lot of room to spend money on improvements and to fix the house up.
Yeah.
So if there's a lot of meat on that bone, that means you have flexibility to spend.
Right. So in our portfolio, we have some homes that don't fit with our current criteria because we bought what we could afford at the time. But I know our criteria going forward, we're looking for 3 or 4 bedroom houses with at least 2 bathrooms, ideally a garage. We have our criteria, and we know certain neighborhoods that we really like. So we have used like Save Zillow searches. And when the house pops up in the neighborhood, we know if it's a good price or not and whether we're ready to move forward or not.
And I probably have 10 to 15 different save searches right now. So I get 2 to 3 Zillow listings a day.
Right.
That and Redfin and the other ones that are sent to me. And I love looking at them every single day and seeing what's coming on the market, seeing what's being reduced, seeing what homes are selling for.
Right.
Because it really, if you're looking at deals every single day and you get notifications of 3 to 4 homes a day in your desired neighborhoods, desired zip codes, you're going to get a good pulse. on what's being sold, on what's being reduced. I mean, we haven't seen reductions in probably 8 months. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, I mean, a while for sure, and maybe even years.
Yeah.
And we're recording this in August because when this comes out, we will hopefully have a newborn or be very close to having a newborn. So
that baby that's in that belly will hopefully be in the arms of one of us.
Yes.
Or the crib sleeping.
We're recording this a little bit ahead of time, but we are, in the past couple of days, early August, have seen a lot of price reductions.
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't call it that. They call it price improvements.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, they gotta find a way to make the reduction sound more appealing.
Yes.
I mean, it's super appealing to the buyer.
Right.
It's not as appealing to the seller or other people trying to sell their homes for that market value.
Right.
So they call it a price improvement.
Yes. Well,
I guess it improves the buyer's situation, but not the seller's.
Yeah. So, I mean, having that clear criteria just really helps you know where to focus and hone in. Mm-hmm. Bill Cook is a mentor of ours and friend, and his criteria is he looks for homes within 5 miles of the Cartersville Walmart. Mm-hmm. And he has other criteria, but that's his radius that he's interested in pursuing.
Right.
So,
and he has it nailed down.
Right.
And when he goes and knocks on doors, that's where he is. And so, I mean, I bet you all those neighborhoods around there probably know Bill's face.
Oh, they definitely
Because he's been door knocking that area for 10 years or so.
Right.
And when he goes through the neighborhood, I'm sure he has seen different neighborhoods go through different cycles. I'm sure he has seen different people move into different homes and has a good pulse on his market.
Yeah, definitely.
He knows whether the neighborhood is a selling market or whether it's a buyer market, whether it's a rental market, or whether is it in the middle, is it changing?
Yeah.
So he has a really good pulse on it because he's in that market all the time. And he's boots on ground. Like he's walking those neighborhoods and talking to those people.
Yeah. I mean, he uses the tools in his toolbox. Mm-hmm. He is a people person. He loves talking to people.
And he's a salesman. I mean, he sold vacuum cleaners for a very long time.
Yeah.
In a family business, I think, and well, his family worked in the same business for a while.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was a salesman and was used to doing door-to-door sales.
Right.
And so that is his toolbox.
Right.
That is where his comfort zone is.
He enjoys it. So for me, that is my nightmare. But I am really good at computer work and analyzing deals through Zillow and other sources. So I leverage those tools to help us find deals. You have a different toolbox that you leverage. So at the end of the day, it's use the tools in your toolbox. If you are not interested in farming a 5-mile radius around your house, that's okay. That's the strategy that works for him. He knows that market like the back of his hand. Right. And it's given him a great life, but that doesn't mean that's the only way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, step 2, there's no deals out there. What do you do? Right. Step 1 was have clear criteria. Step 2 is just make some deals or make offers. Create those deals. And the 4 things we're going to talk about, 1 is solve problems. And we talked about this a little in depth last episode, talking about, in this business, you have to be in it for the right reasons, or you'll find short-lived success. Your main focus has got to be solving people's problems. Now, people that list on Zillow and Redfin and all those other home listing sites, their problem is simple. They need to sell their home. And so
generally they're looking for the best price possible if they're listing with an agent.
And what you find is that people that are in a situation, they're not advertising their homes for sale on Zillow and Redfin because most of the time they're in a situation where they can't sell it for that price or their home is not in a sellable condition. So how do you go out there and find those deals to be able to solve problems? Well, a couple of steps could be mailers. You could mail the people. You could drive through those neighborhoods, find neighborhoods that look like, this home, the grass hasn't been cut, or the windows have been busted out for 6 months and they haven't been replaced, or there's a tarp on this roof. The list could go on and on about what a house might look like where the sellers might be in a situation. So when you see those homes and you're doing mailers, you can drive through those neighborhoods. You can write down the address. There are several apps out there that you can just pop the address in and automatically shoot an email or shoot a mailer out. But, ultimately, you want to get a piece of mail in that owner's hands that says, I really want to buy this home. I love the neighborhood, and I want to talk to you about this.
Right. There's door knocking also, which is very similar strategy. And the thing is, you can't just knock on that neighborhood's doors once, or send a mailer one time, or a phone call or a text, or however you're reaching out. You have to continually show up.
There's the rule of 7 when it comes to getting people to buy into your product. And buying a home and getting people to sell to you is a product. You have to have 7 touches on average to get someone willing to either talk to you about selling their home or listen to you about anything that you're doing. If I'm trying to sell, yo-yos, and I go around a neighborhood, it's very unlikely that the majority of them will want to buy my yo-yo on the first time. But if I see them 7 times over the course of 3 months, they're probably going to be like, oh, it's this guy again. He's got yo-yos. I kind of like yo-yos. I want to buy one.
Yeah.
Speaking of yo-yos, those were the big jam when I was a kid.
I'm surprised you didn't go hacky sacks or something else.
No. Don't you remember the X-Brain yo-yos?
Yes.
Like, you could walk the dog for 10 days. Anyways.
I'm sure you spent a lot of time.
All right. So make deals. Step 2, work with the seller. Figure out what position they're in. Figure out what are their stress points. What's pain? What pain is being brought to them upon owning this house? Right.
I mean, we purchased a home from someone who lost his brother and sister-in-law, and the house, they were hoarders. And the man we bought it from, he inherited it, and he and his wife had tried to clean it out, and they had made a lot of progress, but it still needed a lot of work, and they were emotionally spent. They couldn't continue, and we offered them 2 options on the purchase. We offered them a straight cash number, and then we offered them some of the upside. Yeah, so if we sold it for more than what we thought, they would get some of that upside.
Yeah. So
after we got a guaranteed profit and they got a guaranteed profit.
Right. So that's called an equity split when we structure a deal like that. And what might be detractive for the seller at that contract might be that, well, they want a guaranteed more. They on the cash offer, they're guaranteed a little bit more than the equity split. But the thing is about the equity split is that, especially in the market that we were in at that time, there was a really good chance that it would sell for more.
Right.
And it was just the cash offer, it was a clean cut. They could just walk away.
Right.
And they could have their nut.
Yeah, and they were fine with that. I mean, there was a little bit at risk for them if they took the equity split because the guaranteed was lower. Mm-hmm. But they had the opportunity to earn a significant amount more. Yeah. With what we thought the housing market would do, and it did. But they took the just straight cash offer because they were emotionally done. And it's sometimes hard for us to understand because we're in this business to grow our financial resources and net worth. So it's hard to understand why someone would walk away from tens of thousands of dollars. But from his perspective, he lost his brother and sister-in-law. He was worn out. He just wanted to move on with his life. Yeah. And he had the unfortunate, responsibility of going and keeping the grass mowed, checking the mail, making sure no one broke into the home. So he had to keep going there. Yeah. And revisiting, that was his brother's home. Right. His pain point. That was it. The situation was his brother built this home on a lake, and it was his brother's dream, and they only lived it for a few years before they both passed away. Right. So it was just, for him, the extra money that he didn't even really want or need because he had his own financials in line. So this was just money that his brother had worked for. So it just, for him, he was just emotionally ready to move on. So know that when you're working with a seller and you negotiate something for a lower price than they could list it on the market, you are providing a service. That's right. With taking it off their hands in a condition that a real estate agent will tell them they have to clean up and do all these things. And sometimes it's just not worth it for people. Absolutely. They just want to be done. Yeah. Because the pain of looking at it, or the pain of living there, or the pain of something to do with the house is so burdensome that it's just not worth the money. Right. It's not worth the upside, because along with the upside comes more time invested. Right. And you're providing that service. Because if you're in an equity split with a seller and they're just done, they're still going to have to be involved. Right.
especially when it comes to, offers coming in, and because you can take those properties under contract, and, you could do subject to, you could do assumed mortgage, or you could just, have them pay it while you take over it.
Right.
They just keep making the payments, and you fix the house up, and y'all just have a agreement between you two that when you sell it, this is the terms.
Yeah.
So there's many ways to set that kind of thing up.
Right.
But, work with that seller, find what their pain point is, and offer them a solution. You may be very surprised to see that sellers are willing to take even less than what you have a number in your head for, because you don't understand sometimes what they're going through.
Right.
And you just being there and being willing to take care of their problem is just the answer they need.
Right. And if this is something that sounds interesting to you, I highly recommend you look at Bill Cook and his teachings.
Mm-hmm.
He has taught us everything we know. He also, on his website, billandkimcook.com, they have a list of upcoming courses for them and other people that they follow. And we've taken a lot of those courses in the past or plan to take them in the future. And I just highly recommend you start there. If this is something you're interested in, and, equity split sounds like something interesting, go learn it from the master. Don't learn it from us. We're still students in all of this,
mm-hmm.
but
right.
we're planning to go see Bill in a few weeks at a seminar with some of our other friends and mentors, and
that's right.
Really look forward to expanding our toolbox in that regard. But yeah, just I would go straight to the source instead of basing it off what we're saying.
Right. So continuing our conversation of making deals, after you've, figured out what the pain points are, gotten a contract, or, gotten a house under contract, no matter what situation it is, there's always the big, hairy thing on the back end, which is buying it. Finding the money to take it down. And a lot of times you hear all of these, real estate investors saying, I'll buy your home for cash. I've got cash ready to go. I'll make you a cash offer right now. For the most part, for the majority, this cash is not really theirs. It's coming from somewhere else. It's just readily available. It's just quickly available and shows up as cash. So what you need to have set up is good financing.
Right.
You got to make sure that you have the means to take down this deal for which you fought so hard for. So when you get a house under contract and you're lined up to solve their problems, the last thing you want to do is to have gone through all of that work to solve this problem, and then 7 days later or 5 days later, when your contract has reached its no turning back point, is call them and say, I really wanted to make this happen for you, but I don't have the money.
Right. Well, and there's opportunity to structure with the seller for some kind of financing.
Yes, very
true. Whether they
true.
put up all of it or part of it, or you take over their loan. There's a lot of ways you can approach it. And again, I recommend you go to the masters and learn from them. But make sure you have some kind of financing lined up so that you don't leave the seller in a lurch.
Right. And we've talked about it on previous episodes, how we took over one property where we just started making payments on their mortgage.
Right.
And when we refinanced, we gave them some money out of the refinance as their commission, if you will, for working with us.
Right.
So either you're making a cash offer and you need to find, relationships with private money lenders or hard money lenders, or just people with lazy money that they want to deploy into real estate, or maybe they just trust you and want to give you a couple $100,000 at a lower interest. Those are good friends to have. So, but make sure you have the financing set up, or you have the strategies in mind to work with that seller to either have them carry the mortgage or to have them owner finance it to you,
Right.
Or do a seller carry. Owner financing, seller carry is kind of the same thing. But there are a million different ways to structure it. There are so many ways to structure it.
Right.
And like Tiffany's saying, Bill Cook, when it comes to creative deal structuring, he's the genius behind it. At least as from what we see in our circle.
Yeah.
He's a strong mentor of ours, but there are other teachers out there as well.
I will also add cashflowdepot.com. Jack Miller has a lot of content out there, and Bill learned from Jack. So I guess if you want to go to the true master, go listen to Jack talk. But
also on Cashflow Depot, if you're like, I don't even know what a contract looks like to do a seller carry or to do a purchase with an option or to do any of those strategic purchases, there are a lot of contracts on Cash Flow Depot that you can just look at the samples, and you can even download them and make them your own.
Yeah, so, I will just caveat that with make sure you understand the contract.
Very true.
And if you need to, get an attorney to review it. Don't just download it and use it.
And go make offers.
Yeah. Make sure you understand it. But that's right. A good starting point for sure.
All right, so one of the last steps here is, let's say you have exhausted all of your efforts in your market. You've knocked on doors, you've cold called, you've sent out mailers, you've talked to seller end on end, but you've not made any progression.
Yeah.
You've hit a dead end.
You're stalled.
What do you do? So there are a lot of people that say, I will only invest in my market because I don't want to have to deal with travel, or I don't want to have to deal with long distance. But there are a lot of people out there that are very successful doing long distance real estate investing. And I don't know who wrote the book at Bigger Pockets, but what is it called?
David Green wrote Out of State Investing book.
Yeah.
Is it Out of State Investing, or is it Long Distance?
I think it's Long Distance Real Estate Investing. But, it walks you through the steps you want to take to finding those deals out of your market. And finding those deals is going to be very similar to finding them in your own market. The thing is, you can't be there to knock on all those doors.
Right.
You're going to want to employ someone to go knock on those doors for you. Or you're going to want to build relationships with wholesalers in that area, ones that are, trusted. Or build a relationship with a real estate agent out there. Or just save some Zillow searches in that zip code and figure out what's being, get a pulse on that market and figure out what is a good price, what's a bad price.
You definitely have to know the market and build your team. And David's book has a lot of steps that you can follow step by step to understand how to do it. At the end of the day, what tools are in your toolbox and what does your dream life look like?
Yeah.
That's what really matters.
No doubt.
For us, we wanted properties near our home. That's just a strategy that works for us. We've never had like a clear radius of we won't buy, outside this distance, but
we kind of just look at each other and say, you willing to drive that far?
Right.
If so-and-so happens.
Yeah.
And, we're not as, I don't know.
We're not working as much in the business.
Right.
As we
That's what I was trying to say.
I know. Our first property was 45 minutes from our home.
Yeah.
And we were driving there every day while we were renovating it.
Very much.
And then, as things have progressed, we still have to drive down there periodically. And we hate it. So I think we kind of have this rough 15, 20 minutes is probably how far we are willing to travel.
That's about right.
So we probably should have more strict criteria on this, but we know what areas we really like and where we want to purchase homes. And that first house is way too far away.
That's right.
For our comfort level.
Yeah.
Because we like being able to drive to our houses.
And one day we might sell it to someone.
Yeah.
Just to make sure all of our properties are a lot closer to us.
Right.
And, give someone a chance to, nurse that baby.
Right.
Because it's been a journey with that property.
Yes.
But, it's been a good property.
Yeah, definitely. So with trying to find deals, we talked about getting creative. So, paying someone to help you. If you can't find deals, find a wholesaler or a real estate agent who has leads coming in.
Right.
There's so many avenues to get deals. And I know this market that we're in right now it's challenging. We personally are not buying a lot right now because the deal flow is harder. And within our roadmap, we're focusing on building on-purpose investor. So we're living according to our roadmap. But if your roadmap is to buy deals right now, find a way to make it work.
Yeah. There
is a way. If you need to, use creative terms, because what makes a deal a lot of times is in the financing.
Yeah, I mean, you could overpay for a house by $1 million.
Right.
And that would be okay if the seller gave you 200 years to pay for it.
At no interest.
At no interest.
Right.
I mean, it's really all in the terms.
Right.
So,
well, I think it's a mix of terms and then what you do with the property. Our last purchase, we were willing to pay whatever the seller wanted, honestly, within reason, of course. Yeah. But we knew we could get good financing, and we knew we were going to turn it into a rent by the room situation. Right. So we knew the cash flow would be there. So as a traditional rental, it breaks even.
Yeah.
And that's always been our fallback. So we wanted to make sure it would cover the note.
Right.
If we got in a situation where the rent by the room didn't work. Mm-hmm. But it makes a healthy cash flow for us. And
it does.
And I think it's already gone up in enough value that it justifies what we paid. But even if not, it was a decision that we decided in 5 years, are we going to be mad we bought this house for that price? And the answer was absolutely not.
Right.
So we knew we had to buy it.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, being creative, it takes a lot of training to figure out how to be creative. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people are very creative people. But when it comes to being creative within real estate, you got to make sure you're acting within the bounds of what's legal and what is acceptable across, the playing field. Because you might think that what you're doing is very creative and very beneficial, but then realize, oh, I'm kind of not doing right by the seller.
Yep.
Or I'm not doing right by my private money lender. Make sure you're studying on creative deal structuring so that you're doing it within the bounds.
Right.
Just be careful out there. You don't want to overpromise the seller something that you can't legally back up. You don't want to overstretch yourself just for the sake of being creative. There are a lot of people out there that really enjoy hyper creativity, and there are some situations where it requires that. I recall talking to someone about a super hyper creative thing where they rented it from the seller and then they did something with it and then had to lease it back to a company in which the seller rented from them, and then there were a couple of stacked mortgages where they stacked them up for years 3 and years 5 and years 7 and years 11, and with the stacks came different levels of ownership, and then over the course of 10 years they own it. It was very hyper creative,
right?
And it worked, but it was because of the situation that seller was in,
right? With
some kind of legal thing they were in,
right? So
if
you're new to this,
find
a mentor that understands creative deal structuring. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of regulations that you don't know about until you know about them.
That's right.
Like, you don't want to purchase a home and lease it back to the homeowner.
Right.
That can create a sticky situation for you, like federal issues, prison, fines, all that good stuff. So
yeah, and you don't want to put an option on a house and then let that seller buy that option back, and y'all have agreed to it beforehand.
Right.
Like, that's a big no-no.
Yeah.
But, you wouldn't know these things unless you were studying how to be creative within the bounds of the law.
Right. So that's where going to seminars and meeting people who are doing it, it might cost you $600 plus airfare and hotel and all that. So maybe $2,000 all in all at most. But the connections you make are worth more than $2,000, especially if it saves you from federal prison. But
I mean, most of those fines are minimum $250,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I always see when I think about creative deal structures. I'm like, is it within the bounds of the law? Because I don't want a $250,000 fine.
So would you rather pay $2,000 and go to spend a weekend in Florida or wherever the seminar might be, or potentially mess up?
I would rather go enjoy Florida.
Yeah. Hey,
than the inside of Alcatraz.
The upcoming seminar we're going to is our baby moon. We're leaving the kiddo at home, and
he'll have a babysitter, so don't worry. We're not leaving him at home with our dogs.
Right.
To fend
He's
for
not
himself.
going to be in the dog crate. He just likes to hang out in there on normal days. But
right. So when you're finding these deals and you're getting sellers to talk to you, or no matter what it might be careful when you talk to your mentors and friends within the business. When you go to them, be hesitant to ask them, is this a good deal? Because you got to be aware that a good deal for you may be a bad deal for them, and vice versa. And I talk about this in the Pathfinder's journey, how Charlie has a vivid dream one night when he talks to Sammy, the meetup guy, and Sammy really lays it out there for him about how does it look like that a deal is good for you but bad for me, and vice versa.
Right.
There's a lot of things that come into play when it comes to risk tolerance, when it comes to financing, when it comes to leverage abilities.
Yeah, and well, in the stage of investing.
Right.
I mean, for us right now, where we are not interested in doing a ton of work on a property.
Yeah.
It's just, we've got a baby coming in a few months. Like,
Yep.
It's our criteria is very different from what it was when we first started.
Very different, yes.
And the amount of work we're willing to put in is, we'd rather pay money for services than putting in the work ourselves. But if you're willing to put in sweat equity, you can buy something a little bit higher than we could.
Absolutely.
So just always keep in mind what's on your roadmap. What do you want out of your life? And use your rentals and your investment strategy to fit with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just, when you ask for advice from other people, take it with a healthy grain of salt, because their roadmap is their roadmap. Their race is their race, and yours is yours.
Right.
Nobody's going to run the same race.
Well, and in the criteria, how much do you need to make cash on cash return or cash flow per house? There's a lot of great trainings on Bigger Pockets that explain these terms, but you should know what you're looking for in that house so that you can help determine, is this a good deal?
Yeah, no doubt.
Because your criteria is going to be very different from the person next to you.
Yeah, no doubt.
For sure.
So this week we talked about, there are no deals out there. And hopefully gave you some ideas to think through. Well, maybe there are deals out there. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right place or going about it the right way. And maybe there are no deals out there in your market. But I promise you, there are deals out there.
Yeah.
There are millions of deals in the world
at
any given moment. It all depends on, are you willing to look in that area? Are you willing to approach that seller in the certain way that they need to be approached? There's so many ways to skin this cat.
Right.
Which way are you going to do it?
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
Figure out what your criteria is. Figure out how to structure the deals. Figure out where you're going to find the deals. Know exactly what you're looking for, what you can afford, how you're going to buy it, and be as creative as you can within the bounds of the law. And, know with all of your being what you're looking for, how you're going to do it, what is it going to be once you take the deal down. It comes to hyper clarity. And here at the On Purpose Investor podcast, we talk about being hyper intentional. And within being hyper intentional comes clarity. Once you can be extremely intentional about where you're going, what your properties look like, what they're going to do for you, how much they cash flow, it's going to provide a very clear picture of where your life will be, what your portfolio looks like. So hyper intentionality breeds hyper clarity.
Oh, that should be a quote.
Boom. All right, I'm done speaking.
You're
off my soapbox.
Off your soapbox. Is that how we're wrapping up every episode now? Eric's soapbox and then the wrap up?
I don't know. Maybe that'll be another product.
What, Eric's soapbox?
Just a bar of soap in a box. Soap in a box.
I don't think that's what it means, but...
I'm done.
All right. Thanks, y'all, for hanging out with us and listening to us talk about finding deals in a tough market. What lessons can you take from this podcast and apply to your life? Don't let the time you just invested go to waste. You only get one life, so live it purposefully. That's all we have for you today. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Head over to onpurposeinvestor.com and sign up for our newsletter to get all the latest updates. If you haven't already, we'd really appreciate an honest review wherever you watch our podcast. All right, now go smash that subscribe and follow button for more tips on building your dream life. See you next week, Pathfinders.